Hello, and welcome to What's New with CDP Public Cloud. We're doing an Administrators Edition this week. So my name is Hannah Jetty, and I'll be your host this week. I am a Product Marketing Manager here at Cloudera, and today with me I have Krishna Maheshwari, who's Product Manager for our Replication Manager products, Gaurav Patel, who's a Product Manager with Public Cloud, and Namrata Patel, who is with our Support Product Management team. So thank you guys all for joining me today. And to our audience, thank you for joining as well. Krishna, where are you joining us from this week?
I am in New Jersey this week.
Nice, closer to my home this time. And I am coming to you from the mountains of Pennsylvania, where it is very gloomy today. Gaurav, where are you based?
I'm from sunny California, the Bay Area.
So the difference between all three of us is really how much humidity we all have right now.
Okay, Namrata, where are you based?
0 to 90.
Oh, sure. And to our audience, let us know where you're joining us from. We'd love to know where everyone's listening and watching. So today we are going to be talking about talking to administrators. We have some new capabilities that are going to make managing CDP easier and are going to help administrators with replicating data, with custom images. We're talking about role-based access control, as well as sending diagnostics. So let's dive in. We have, for those of you who are watching us live, we have a raffle. If you ask a question or put in a comment in the comment window below, you'll be entered to join the raffle. So ask some questions for experts to learn more about the products, as well as maybe you'll get some Cloudera swag. We have some nifty socks, a hat, maybe even a notebook, whatever strikes your fancy. So don't forget to ask questions as we go. So let's start with Krishna. So Krishna, how do you move data from on-prem to the cloud?
Yeah, so moving data, Cloudera has a lot of different tools that help customers move data from on-premise to the cloud, as well as from different locations on-premise. And some of those capabilities can also help you move data across clouds within a single vendor or even across vendors. What we're doing at Cloudera today is looking at how we can simplify it dramatically. We understand that administrators are tired of using the broad set of tools and capabilities that they have. They're really looking for a common set of functionality that's really easy to use, really easy to administer. From that standpoint, we're bringing in Replication Manager, which is looking to consolidate all of those capabilities into one place. Some of those capabilities are available today. The rest are coming in the coming months. So if you look at the slide that's on the screen, the two green bubbles represent on-premise data centers, and the blue cloud represents clouds. And there's multiple blue clouds, as you notice, because we're simplifying the view of going across cloud vendors, as well as moving data across regions within a single vendor. And they're both kind of hidden and simplified there. Replication Manager fundamentally lives in the public cloud. It is a part of the Cloudera control plane. And from there, what we envision is being able to set up replication policies that let you move data anywhere in this chart, whether that's on-prem to on-prem, on-prem to the cloud, cloud to cloud, cross-region, cross-cloud vendor. Today, we have some of those capabilities available, and as I mentioned, we're looking to fill them out. So if you're an on-premise user and you have data sitting in on-premise on one of these green buckets here, green circles, and you want to move your HDFS data or your Hive data, you can simply log into Replication Manager, peer your cluster with our public cloud instances through something called Classic Cluster Registration. And then from there, you can set up your Hive or HDFS policies at the schedule that you want for that to happen, select your databases, your tables, or your files that you want replicated, and then click Go. If you want to set up some advanced settings, for example, rate limit, because you're worried about overwhelming your WAN network, you can do that. In about 2 weeks, we're going to enable cloud-to-cloud replication for HBase. So now you will start seeing some of the cloud-to-cloud capabilities land. And then the coming months, we're looking really to fill out the entire triumvirate across this triangle, across Hive, HDFS, as well as HBase. So those three are the first set of capabilities we're bringing all in one place.
Got it. Then how is this going to help customers get to hybrid cloud?
So when we think about hybrid cloud, I'm really thinking about this picture right here on this slide, right? If you have two things anywhere here on this slide, whether it's two cloud instances or a green on-premise instance in a cloud, that's hybrid cloud in my world. And so what we want to do is make it really easy for you to move data regardless of on-prem or cloud. Now, some of you may be wondering why I consider two blue things as hybrid cloud versus two green things as hybrid cloud, not just the blue and green. And we live in a really interesting world of regulatory change. And we're increasingly seeing regulation in Europe that's saying, hey, you have to span multiple cloud vendors. You can't have a single cloud vendor. We're also, when we tend to talk about cloud vendors, we think the big three, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. The reality is there are hundreds of other cloud vendors that are smaller, that are regional, that also provide services, and they will become increasingly important as these regulations come into effect and they are complied to by users and customers. And the line of what is a data center will start blurring. And so we consider all of this as hybrid cloud because there will be cloud that's on-prem as a private cloud. There'll be cloud that's in public cloud in one of the big three. There'll be clouds that are in some of these niche vendors. And we just need to make sure that data flows easily and easily across all of these with security and governance.
Got it. That makes sense. So what's an example of how a customer would use Replication Manager in their environment?
Yeah, so I'll give you two examples. I'm working with a customer that has a mission critical application on-prem in their data center. They need to do a number of different things to be successful with their application. There's a lot of data that's being ingested and processed, and that processing can be pretty heavyweight. But then that powers a web app that they make available to their customers where they have millisecond latency requirements. And what happens is that app works really well today, as long as they're not doing the processing simultaneously. And when the processing comes, they miss their SLAs on the application latency and they get customer complaints. So what we're talking to them and helping them think through is how do they move just that application into the public cloud, but the data is processed on-prem using their existing infrastructure and seamlessly available in real time so that customers' expectations are met. So that's one example where you're moving your serving layer into the public cloud and keeping the two in sync. And in this case, the application itself does modify the data, so we need data flowing in both directions. Another example is where customers want to burst analytic workloads into the cloud or drive dashboarding, like say a Tableau dashboard that's powered by data in the cloud. So you can have some data processing on-prem and just have the relevant data required to power the dashboard in the cloud. And now when your dashboard shows up, it's running the queries with the relevant data that's available locally in the cloud for that application to surface that. Otherwise, all of that processing has to happen on-prem. So these are two examples of hybrid cloud where you're moving data between two different buckets here.
Got it. That makes sense. It's super interesting. So we've started to get some questions from the audience. To our audience, if you have a question for Krishna, please ask it now because he won't be on later. So first we have, how is it different from BDR or DLM?
Yeah, so BDR and DLM are both replication applications that came from legacy Cloudera or legacy Hortonworks respectively. The vision for BDR was to do Hive and HDFS replication really well. And that was primarily on-prem focused, but there were aspects of public cloud that could be supported. The vision for DLM was much broader, but it was a significantly younger product and was early in its adoption cycle. And so it could only do Hive and HDFS. When we look at Replication Manager, our starting point is replication, but we're really aiming to facilitate and simplify disaster recovery, business continuity, and data protection. So a much, much broader vision. We're also looking to consolidate all replication capabilities across Cloudera into a single place with a standardized policy-based approach. We're starting with these three. We will be expanding over a broader time frame to support more than just these three. But this is the single place you come to for replication anywhere across any environment that's a Cloudera environment.
Got it. And that kind of ties us in nicely with the next question. Hive has Hive replication, which does near replication, same for HBase. Does Replication Manager do near replication? Does it still use disk CP in batch way? And can Replication Manager help for Hive and HBase?
Yeah, so disk CP is one of the several engines that Cloudera has that does the data movement. For those of you that aren't familiar, disk CP literally stands for distributed copy, and it can help you move data from one HDFS location to another location. Most of the time that's HDFS, but we can also write to cloud object stores like S3 and ADFS. So it is used when we're replicating data from HDFS. It's used as part of how we do replication in Hive. The way it's been used for Hive is changing as we look to enable replication for Hive Asset, which uses a different mechanism that's augmented by disk CP instead of a pure disk CP approach. HBase does not use disk CP for its replication. It's replicating from write-ahead logs. That's the primary way that it does replicate. But it does use disk CP behind the scenes when you're replicating bulk loads. If you're not familiar, this was introduced in CD8 6 and HDP 3, I believe, and carries forward into CDP. So yes, it's one of several tools that we're using. And behind the scenes, we don't plan on deprecating it.
Got it. Good to know. So I think that is all we have for questions today. Thank you, Krishna, for joining us. And for the audience, if you are interested in learning more about Replication Manager, we have a webinar coming up, Ask the Experts, Fast Track to CDP Public Cloud, that Krishna will be presenting on. We'll learn more about Replication Manager. I'll share the link and some more information about that at the end. And another question just came in while we were waiting. So maybe, Krishna, if you have a moment to stay on, we will take a look at that before we move on to the topic. So how would the HDFS replication factor across multiple, maybe 2, clouds with default settings, total 3 copies, or 3+3 with default settings?
So I didn't quite get the default settings piece, but Replication Manager hides all the disk CP settings unless you really care and want to tweak, and then we make some of those settings available as a checkbox. But fundamentally, Replication Manager is going to allow you to move that data. Now, disk CP literally is for HDFS, but as I mentioned, we're not focused and anchored on HDFS. It just happens to be our largest data source. So Replication Manager, regardless of disk CP or not, will allow you to move your data from disk CP to object storage and back. Today, we can only do it to object storage. We will do both, as well as from one object storage to another. So say S3 to Azure. As soon as we get to it, you'll see that. And I expect we'll be using more than just disk CP by the time we get there. Disk CP and HBase replication are 2 fundamental building blocks we're using today, but we're not anchored and committed to only using them.
Got it. Excellent. Well, thank you, Krishna, for joining us today. And again, if you want to hear more, join us on the webinar on August 10th.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And now let's chat with Gaurav. Gaurav, welcome. This is your first live stream, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
2 topics today. We're going to be chatting about role-based access controls and custom images for Data Lake and Data Hub. So let's start with access controls. So in CDP today, who's able to create clusters?
So when we talk about creating components within CDP Public Cloud, we have various roles that are defined, right? We've got roles for activating certain experiences, but the underlying factor is that you need to have elevated privileges to be able to do most of those actions, whether it is creating an environment or creating a credential or creating any shared resources such as a recipe or a template or an image catalog. All of them need elevated privileges, and you need what is called as a power user role. The power user role is just that. It is a power user which gives you full visibility into everything running on the system. So you do need a very high level of privilege today to be able to create environments, even data hub clusters within an environment. You need this elevated level of access.
Got it. So what's a typical configuration in an organization?
So what we've seen over the past few years now is that a typical organization has different users at different levels. It's not quite, I'm a power user with all rights over everything, as opposed to I'm someone who's got limited control. And this is what we've seen in an admin scenario, for example. You would have those resources who would need to have access at the platform level, need to be able to see and manage all resources, right? This is your true power user. Then you've got users who need to be able to create environments and manage those environments, but they should be able to create and manage environments which they have created or they have been granted rights to, not be able to manage. So in this scenario, Annette should not be able to go and modify James's environment if she has not been granted the appropriate rights to do so. Further, while this is an administrator scenario, we've got a user scenario where once even Annette has created an environment, she wants to give more granular control to people within that environment of hers. She would want someone to be able to perform management activities on the environment. She wants to give people the ability to create data hub clusters, manage those data hub clusters, give permissions to those resources. This is what we've typically seen is what a requirement ends up being for most customers.
Got it. So then what kind of control would an individual user get?
Now, with the role-based access control, we are introducing new roles. And these new roles give us that granular permissions that we are looking for. We are introducing a role called as an environment creator. This environment creator, which is an account level role, will allow you to create a CDP environment. It'll allow you to create shared resources, such as recipes, templates, data hub templates, definitions, etc., without you being able to see and modify things which someone else has created, right? So I'm trying to distinguish this between a power user, which could also do all of that, but had visibility to what someone else has created. This is now providing restricted access that you can only create and consume. So for example, a CD environment creator, I as an environment creator cannot use a cloud credential which you, Hannah, have created unless you explicitly share that credential with me. We've got a shared resource user. Remember those shared resources? This is how you actually share it. So while you have created a resource, you can have others being added as a shared resource user. So someone else can use your recipe, can use your credential if you need, if you'd like to provide that. We've introduced a data hub creator role. The data hub creator role allows a person, the data hub creator, which is defined within the scope of an environment, would allow you to actually, would give people the ability to create the data hub. And once they create a data hub, they own that data hub and they have the ability to manage that resource. The next role that we've introduced is an owner role. Now, this is a very interesting role because this applies to all resources. When I'm saying all resources, it applies to environments, to catalogs, everything. And the owner resource is the role role that you would need to be able to go ahead and delete a resource. So remember, we had the shared resource owner. As a shared resource owner, I can go ahead and use a recipe that a different developer has created, but I cannot go ahead and delete that. I need to be defined as an owner for me to be able to go ahead and do those level of changes. And this applies at all levels. So we're trying to decouple what an administrator is to what an owner is, who has the ability to destroy a resource as well.
Got it. So that sounds interesting to kind of start distributing the power from the power user into the
correct
users.
One of the this next set of changes which we have introduced is that at the account level, we had two roles, and I'm going to stress this is the account level environment admin and environment user. Roles are being deprecated. The same roles with the same names exist within an environment, and those are not being modified. It's at the account level they are being modified because, well, those roles, as in at the account level, are not quite as helpful, and we're just trying to remove the ambiguity that it has caused by having the same roles being present in two different places. These set of changes are going to be rolling out within the next few weeks. We already have a few customers, actually, or a dozen customers who are already consuming it. This will be rolled out for everyone within the next 3 weeks.
Got it. So from a customer who wants to use it, what's the first step that I take to get started?
The way we've designed these roles, these are going to be non-destructive roles. So for example, if we were to have, once we enable and you have these new roles available, your existing users do not break. And that was an important paradigm we wanted to go with. We did not want to make the changes such that come tomorrow morning, suddenly suddenly things are going to stop working. Now you need to go and make fixes. And that's not the case. What we're doing is these new roles will become available. You can start assigning people these new roles and start removing the power user role from those users. But you can adopt this at your pace. We are not going to force you to do it through an overnight script or through a midnight call saying that someone has lost access to their resources. You're going to have the ability to transition to this at your pace, and we will provide resources. Some of the resources are already available in our public cloud documentation, which walk around scenarios as to how do you move if this user had these set of roles, what are the new roles that this user should have now. So we have that documented, and that is available for consumption.
Got it. Thank you. So for the audience, if you have any questions for Gaurav about the roles, please put them in the chat window. Now let's chat a little bit about custom images and something else that you've been working on. So what types of customers are interested in custom images, and why would they start using them?
So typically custom images are, so for customers running in the cloud or even on-prem, right? At times there are resource monitoring tools that you would like to deploy. Whether there are, there's antivirus software that you need to install because they're running within your network, within your VPC, or you might need to do some monitoring tools, maybe CloudStrike or similar, right? You're trying to monitor and see what tools can I actually use to, what do I need to manage and monitor the virtual machines that are running within my network. In order to manage that, you need, there are a couple of options, right? Either you install them once the resources are spun up, which is a little bit painful, or the idea is why not burn them into the image itself? So once the system is started, it already has the components that you need. So customers who have the needs for these compliance and these monitoring tools, or for customers who have compliance needs, which say that I'm not going to use the Cloudera provided images as is. I need to put in my additional hardening rules on top of it before we start consuming it. Those are examples of customers who would typically benefit from these custom images.
Okay, so what's the process for creating these custom images?
Now, the process for creating custom images, it starts with first, one, remember, when we're saying custom images, we are providing the capability for the images which Cloudera provides to be customized. It's not taking, let me bring my own new image, vanilla image, and let me try and run Cloudera on top of it. The idea is take the image which we have. We've already deployed some components on it. They've been pre-warmed with the Cloudera components with some configurations which are required for Cloudera to run or CDP to run. And you can the first step is identifying what version are you trying to customize. Once you've identified, let's say we want to customize 7.2.10 is the one that we want to start utilizing. You will identify what is an image, whether it's a AMI or a VHD for Azure that you're trying to use as a starting point. You need to first identify that. And we've got commands using the CDP CLI, which will allow you to give you that information. It's also available in the UI as well. So we've got multiple modes through which we can get that information. Once that is identified, then it depends on what is the customer's image customization process. Now, some customers are using Packer, others are using some are doing it manually or using some automated tools. But the way you would approach it is you take, what would happen is if you're using Packer would create an image, create a VM from that image. It would then run the scripts to customize that image. It would deploy the components, the tools that are required. And then from that VM that is running, it would create an image, a new image. So it's a new image, it's a new VHD that gets created. That information is then inserted into image catalog. The image catalog, and that within that image catalog, you define that for this region, here is the image that I want to use instead. And that image and then when you're creating whether it's creating the environment or you're creating the data lake or you're creating the data hub, you would then specify that here's the image catalog, here's the image that I intend to use, and then you'd spin up the images.
Got it. So then what services are custom images available for?
So custom images are available for creating a data lake, creating an environment, and creating data hubs. This is for so the data hub experience supports it, the environment and data lake support it. There are also custom images possible for Cloudera Data Warehouse. The process is similar, where you define and you'll specify what the new AMI is. When we work on experiences, it's good to note that the experiences will work on AWS. Azure does not give us the capability of modifying the image running the AKS clusters. So when we get into the experiences, there are certain limitations that come in.
Okay, got it. Thanks. So let's take a look, see if we have any questions come in for you. So this is going back to the roles. Do roles get added in AD as a user, Azure AD in the case of Azure? And does it have Kerberos principal? With this, are we able to log into the server?
So these are roles. So the roles are equivalent to your control plane roles, the management console and control plane roles. So these do not get moved into the Azure AD. When the users from Azure AD, once they are in CDP public cloud, you would assign them different roles. Today, you would assign them a power user or an environment admin. What we're doing is we're extending those and providing additional, more granular roles here. So it does not go back into AD whatsoever.
Okay. So on the custom images, do custom images take a snapshot of the system at that moment and include data and metadata?
Okay. This is the custom images is the baseline image that is running the VM itself. This is the image. So we're not taking snapshots. This is not a backup and restore mechanism. You see, if I'm taking a snapshot, then this becomes a backup and restore. This is think of it as the base software needed to run Cloudera public cloud. That is what it is. Once you instantiate the VM and it's running in, let's say, as a data hub cluster, that's when you'll start putting in your data or your processing or your customizations on top of it. But the VM itself, the base operating system and the Cloudera components, that is what the VM, that's what the custom images is used to address.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's take one more question before we move on to Namrata. So can you try to elaborate on a real use case where custom images would be required?
So I'll give you an example of one of our healthcare customers. And the requirement for that healthcare customers was that instead of them they were not permitted to use images that were created by Cloudera, for example. They needed to have certain compliance needs where there was a third party who takes on responsibility for ensuring that the systems and that those VMs are secure. They don't take the responsibility themselves. It is there's a third party, there's a vendor who takes that responsibility. So in order for them to take that responsibility, they want to ensure that they have the required monitoring tools available. So it is those are scenarios where you would have that's a real world scenario where they were required to use custom images as opposed to images provided by Cloudera.
Okay, that's helpful context. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah, stay tuned, Gaurav. We'll see if there's more questions that come in for you. But for now, let's move on to Namrata to talk about support.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, thanks. So yeah, so I know that you're here to talk about how we're helping customers share data with us to get better support. So tell us a little bit about the unified diagnostic experience that you're launching.
Yeah, so in support today, like as we work through the cases, customers interact through the cases, and our support engineers interact through the cases, we always have a need to get that diagnostic data to help the troubleshooting of the cases more efficient, right? And to also help our customers. So that being said, on the public cloud, what we are launching is something called Unified Diagnostics Experience. It's a more simplified and a unified way to bundle generation experience. So you can see here, we have Anna, who is an environment admin, and let's say she's interacting with UDX. So what generally she is doing is probably she is actually has set up few environments, and each of those environments have different experiences associated with that from Cloudera. And she would select one of them or and then generate the diagnostic bundle. And the way we are simplifying it is, let's say we know that Anna is actually generating diagnostics on a specific experience. We kind of know like what metadata and other things that we need to actually capture for the other experiences so that we have more holistic data that's available for our support engineers to better cater to that case. And that's what the UDX is, basically simplified, unified, and as well as improved support interactions here.
Got it. So how is UDX in CDP public cloud different from the other diagnostic capabilities that Cloudera has today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So today, as you can actually see, like we have several different experiences that are part of our public cloud. We have Data Hub, we have CDW, CML, we have SDX, a lot more are in the pipeline as well. So what happens is, as a customer who is using one or more products of Cloudera, we wanted to provide a better experience for them, right? So we don't want a customer going to several different places, several different steps, trying to achieve one goal, which is generating diagnostics. So how it's different is we have built this unified platform. As I was saying, like in this example, if the customer is generating diagnostic data on Data Hub, and that's what the issue they are facing, and there is a support ticket, let's say, they would generate the diagnostics on that. They wouldn't worry about SDX, free IPA, because we know we would need that data to troubleshoot. So we automatically collect that. This is where we are very different than the other capabilities that we have today. And not only that, we also have more structured and consistent policies that we have defined in the way we generate the diagnostic bundle. There is some information that we want to always capture so that it becomes more easier. So our turnaround time also is much faster so that we can help our customers more.
That's great. So when should customers send diagnostic data through UDX?
That's a great question. So let's say there is a support ticket open, or let's say you have an issue that's customer is facing, and then you would create a support case, obviously. And then you would go to the public cloud. In my example here, Anna, the environment admin, would actually have information from the MIC about the case number and go to the public cloud and generate the diagnostic bundle. So as soon as Anna would give the case number, we would have all that data associated, and our support engineers would be able to see all that.
Okay. So then who can generate data, the UDX diagnostics?
Yeah, so it's only the environment admin as of this time, as Gaurav was previously covering. We want to make sure that people who have access to certain environments, only they can actually generate the diagnostic data due to the nature of the data that we collect, right? So yes, it's only the environment admin at this point. Although I do want to cover one other thing here, as far as what we collect, right? We do collect some of, and I'm pretty sure like there are users who have all this in mind as well. We do collect some of the command outputs, infrastructure logs, such as daemon logs, service logs, right? And now as soon as when I talk about all this, one of the questions that comes to our customers is like, are we redacting sensitive information? And the answer is yes, we are.
That's good to know. And I think you have a demo for us, right?
Yep.
Before that, I have one question from the audience. How is this similar to SmartSense?
Yeah, that's a great question. So SmartSense is a legacy Hortonworks platform that we had, right? It used to generate the diagnostic data, but it was more on the legacy front. So on the UDX, we have taken it up a level up in terms of making sure all the experiences are cohesively presented in the public cloud.
Okay. And one of the other questions is, does UDX have a separate UI? But I think you're about to show us that, right?
Yeah. So let's get into that. All right. So I'm just going to switch to the demo here. And I'm on the CDP platform here. It's the main homepage. You can access this diagnostic functionality pretty much from anywhere. But for my today's demo purposes, I'm going to stick to Management Console. And there it is. There is a help option here. And we have a collect diagnostics. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So this is like the landing page that you will have once this has become available. So you will initiate the diagnostic collection. There is a little disclaimer there. We have some additional filters as well, and I'll demo that a little later. So let's go ahead and initiate the bundle generation. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And I'm going to select an environment where I know I can generate the bundle. And here is the case number. You can, as I was saying previously, if you know the case number in hand, so please go ahead and add that. In my case, I'm just going to add some random case here. and the time range. So here, as you can see, like we have a default here. So it starts from now, but you have an option to actually take a look at and update the time. So this is a use case where, let's say, support engineer says, can you give me the diagnostic data from the last 2 days, or like on a specific day where you started having issue, right? So this is what the customer would change to. And the collection method, right? So we have upload to Cloudera support. What this means is, as soon as the customer goes through the steps here and generate the bundle, they don't have to do anything else. We get the diagnostic data associated on the case, and support engineer has that data. That's pretty much it. They don't have to download, upload somewhere else. So it's as simple as that. So that's the collection method that we have for now. And I'm going to actually go ahead and click next to go through this process. We have all different services that are available here. For the GA, we have Data Hub, Data Lake, and Free IPA that are integrated. And the more services are on the way to be integrated in UDX that you will see in future. So I'm going to actually select a particular case here that I want. And this is on a Data Hub. So I selected the Data Hub, and we have a Data Lake cluster. As I was saying, we know what data lake is associated. We also collect the free IPA information, right? So that customers don't have to send that again to us. So it's win-win for customers, win-win for support as well. So let's go ahead and initiate the collection. So as you can see, this is my progress page where I initially started, right? So you will see all the diagnostic collections that I have initiated, and there is a little progress there. Obviously, in progress is something that's in progress, and completed means that you would know that support has received this diagnostic data. Failed is obviously something went wrong. There is a connection issue or anything like that. We would have that information here. And that's about it. That's UDX.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for that demo. So a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for Namratha or Gaurav, please put them in the comments below. And also, if you share a question, you'll get entered in the raffle for a chance to win some fun Cloudera swag. So before we jump into that Q&A, I have a couple tools and resources I wanted to share with you. So first off, we have a CDP administrator training for public cloud as part of our Cloudera on-demand library. The on-demand library is a subscription service that gets you access to a host of courses. So you can learn more about the platform, things like governance, as well as our portfolio of analytic services. So we have courses on Kafka, on Spark, and things like that. So tons of great content for you and your organization. So take a look at that. You'll see the link below. Also, as I mentioned earlier when Krishna was speaking, we have an upcoming webinar on August 10th. So it's Ask the Experts, Fast Track to Public Cloud. And the focus of that webinar is really around migration. So we're showing some demos, talking about best practices, sharing guidelines for beginning your journey on migration, especially including some content on Replication Manager and talking about some actual customer examples on how they migrated. So you'll see the link below, and you can register at the Cloudera events page. So let's take a look and see if there's any more questions coming in. So do we need to open an additional port or server to send data in case of a private network setup?
So yes, we would need the connection setup for sure. We have a prerequisite document that we can actually share one-on-one with our customers to give more information on how do they go about the setup. It's pretty easy.
Excellent. Cool. So I think that is it for questions. Anything else you guys want to add? No, cool.
No.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Please hold on just a minute and we'll do the raffle and see who is going to win our exciting Cloudera swag. Let's see who it is. Thank you to our audience for some excellent questions today and engagement. We're excited to have you. We'll be back next month with some new and exciting features on CDP Public Cloud. To give just a minute for the raffle to be completed. And when the raffle winner is selected, you'll send an email to us to claim your prize. And like I said, you can get some exciting swag like a hat, a Cloudera beanie, some fun socks. So today's winner is Dinesh Sivaprakash. So thank you for asking questions, and email socialmedia@cloudera.com. That's socialmedia@cloudera.com to claim your prize. Thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining. And I got one last question, so let's kind of squeeze one in if we can. Is there data replication between different public clouds? That is a yes, there is. And like I said, if you join our webinar on August 10th, you can learn more about that. So thank you. We'll see you next month.